All right. So back to our theme for today is sharing perception with the Holy Spirit. And it's interesting. I really like visuals because they're a way of, pictures worth 1,000 words. So for me, sharing perception with the Holy Spirit, for years and years, I thought of it kind of in the way that this photo indicates. Uh, but that's not the only way to look at it. I wanted to welcome Sarah. Hi, Sarah. You're here for the first time. Um, Another way to look at sharing perception with the Holy Spirit is it's crowded in here. There's a lot of us. When we share perception with the Holy Spirit, we come together with everyone. And so it's not you alone, separate, and the Holy Spirit. It's all of us together sharing perception together. It's the perception that unites us with everyone. So with that, we'll begin our reading for today. Sarah, this is from chapter 14, section 7.
What do you want? Light or darkness, knowledge or ignorance are yours, but not both. Opposites must be brought together, not kept apart. For their separation is only in your mind, and they are reconciled by union, as you are. In union, everything that is not real must disappear, for truth is union. As darkness disappears in light, so ignorance fades away when knowledge dawns. Perception is the medium by which ignorance is brought to knowledge. Yet the perception must be without deceit, for otherwise it becomes the messenger of ignorance rather than a helper in the search for truth.
So there's a meta theme, a big picture here that is true throughout A Course in Miracles that has to do with the Holy Spirit's function is to teach us to distinguish the truth from illusions, to recognize love and different from fear, to appreciate our holy innocence as opposed to guilt and judgment, to see the contrast between those two opposite views. And then, and only then, can you make a free will choice as to which one you want to, which one you want to choose and align with. And so the method that the Course offers here is to bring both perspectives, the opposite perspectives, together so that they can be seen and understood for what they are. And then in the presence of truth, an illusion fades away into nothing. Or in the presence of pure love, fears and anxieties disappear, is no longer desirable. So we bring them together. The opposite of that is what the ego does. The ego attempts to keep two different viewpoints separated and apart so that your mind splits along the lines of those two viewpoints. This would be equivalent of attempting to serve two masters at once, which cannot be done. So the method here is first recognize that the two viewpoints exist. And then with the guidance of Holy Spirit, it's very obvious where the truth and the light and the love exist. And then we make a free will choice to align ourselves with the Holy Spirit's guidance. Sandra?
My experience with this has been that forgiveness is the bridge that helps me connect the opposites. And truly, there are no real opposites because we are either, I am either coming from my ego, which makes us all the same. If you're coming from your ego and I'm coming from my ego, there's no opposite. Or I'm coming from the, my alignment with the Holy Spirit. And so if you're coming from the Holy Spirit and I'm coming from the Holy Spirit, then there's no opposites. The opposite is when I'm coming from the Holy Spirit and you're coming from the ego, or vice versa. And if I'm truly coming from the Holy Spirit, there still is no opposites, because I'll just turn it over and forgive it, and see the innocence, because it's only a mistake. It's not a sin. It's just a mistake. And so I can see the innocence not only in myself but in my brothers, and particularly that's what motivates me to forgive. I'm complete.
Forgiveness is indeed the bridge. All right, let's go on.
The search for truth is but the honest searching out of everything that interferes with truth. Truth is, it can neither be lost, nor sought, nor found. It is there wherever you are, being within you. Yet it can be recognized or unrecognized, real or false to you. If you hide it, it becomes unreal to you because you hid it and surrounded it with fear. Under each cornerstone of fear on which you have erected your insane system of belief, the truth lies hidden. Yet you cannot know this, for by hiding truth in fear, you see no reason to believe that the more you look at fear, the less you see it, and the clearer what it conceals becomes.
Truth is. Truth is a fact. Truth is permanent, always, here and now, never lost nor found. Always, the kingdom of heaven is within you, and truth is always ever present within the kingdom of heaven. The only thing that can be done is the mind can be distracted away from truth into believing in illusions. And when we do believe in illusions, that causes us to split our attention away from the truth and occupy ourselves with things of the world, things of our own making. And this is what leads to the internal conflict between the truth that is ever present within you and a preoccupation with other things which are but temporary and passing illusions. So the Course is very clear that the search for truth only, since it's already within you, you've already possessed the truth deep within you. The search for truth is merely to undo, or as Sandra pointed out, to forgive those things which would contradict the truth, that would interfere with your recognition and your understanding of the truth. Noel?
In the previous paragraph where it says sentence 2, 3, opposites must be brought together.
Yes.
So that doesn't mean they amalgamate, but rather, does it not mean recognized,
Yes.
brought to light,
Yes.
negative?
Yeah. You're absolutely. Thank you for clarifying that, because that's what you stated it exactly correctly, Noel. We're not trying to amalgamate a lie with the truth. We're not trying to blend them together. But we are using our understanding, which is illuminated by the Holy Spirit, to see the difference and as you said, to recognize that there is a difference between inner guidance of spirit and illusions of the world. And so that recognition is something that a lot of people, well, I think everyone will tell you before A Course in Miracles, I didn't know there was a difference. And so it's the foundation of this is exactly what we said a moment ago. The Holy Spirit's function is to teach us to distinguish, to recognize the difference between illusions and truth. Otherwise, here's the classic error that occurs if you fail to recognize the difference. Otherwise, you will wind up loving the fear and fearing the love. Well, that's confused. And so the recognizing the difference is essential to being free and able to exercise a free will choice. Noelle, you had a follow-up?
Yeah, I came across this statement. It's in the text, chapter 4. The ego is only an idea and not a fact. That's good to remember.
It is. It is. It's merely a delusion, a set of delusional ideas that represent themselves as reality, but once seen next to the reality of heaven and the light of truth, the ideas of the ego are seen as nonsense, meaningless, and therefore easily discarded. Matter of fact, that's the lesson of today, or that's the thesis of what we will read today. Once you see what the ego offers next to what heaven is offering, it's easy to discard the so-called offerings of the ego. Let's see. I've lost my page here again. All right. All right, back on track. David?
It is not possible to convince the unknowing that they know. From their point of view, it is not true. Yet it is true because God knows it. These are clearly opposite viewpoints on what the unknowing are. To God, unknowing is impossible. It is therefore not a point of view at all, but merely a belief in something that does not exist. It is only this belief that the unknowing have, and by it, they are wrong about themselves. They have defined themselves as they were not created.
All right. I think David's internet connection. So if you guys are hearing me, somebody raise a hand. Okay, so it must be David's internet connection that's faulty. So I'm going to read starting in the middle here. To God, unknowing is impossible. It is therefore not a point of view at all, but merely a belief in something that does not exist. It is only this belief that the unknowing have, and by it, they are wrong about themselves. They have defined themselves as they were not created. Their creation was not a point of view, but rather a certainty. Uncertainty brought to certainty does not retain any conviction of reality.
Did my reading not go through?
It got truncated because your internet connection stalled out or hiccup.
I'm sorry. Okay.
That's all right. That's all right. I'm glad that you're back here. So we're talking about opposites, which are found in the world of illusions, but not in the light of heaven. So, and the number of opposites seems to be almost endless, because no matter what the truth is, the ego always has an opposite view of it. So here the example is about to God, he knows the truth, and that's the only state in which he operates is certainty and knowing of the truth. The opposite of that of the ego is the ego pretends to know, but doesn't know it, but in reality doesn't know at all. It's a pretension, a charade. It does have, as it says here, a belief in something that does not exist. The ego would have you believe that it's real, that it's not just an idea, and it would have you invest your faith in the ego, but it's only a belief that it has and not the truth. That belief leads it to be mistaken about our true identity. Okay, Sandra?
This goes so well with the lesson today. God is my goal today. Only God, only you. God is my goal. What is it?
Mhm.
Well, you know what I'm talking about. Because for my experience with this is I had to make that my goal because I was letting other people in the world define who I am. And I really had to train my mind to define myself as God defines me and make God my goal. And it took vigilance with my thinking because my habitual thinking was not to see myself the way God sees me.
Yeah. Yeah, to not see ourselves as God sees us. The entire masquerade of the ego is centered around trying to redefine us so that we do not see ourselves as God sees us. And therefore, healing is to restore our concept of true self to I am as God created me. And to not only hang on to that by a thread, but to invest your faith in it, come to believe it with a whole heart, and ultimately to be certain of it so that doubt about who we are, what we are, increasingly fades until we become absolutely certain. All right. I was going to take a crack at this sentence at the end, but I'm not feeling it at the moment. So we'll go on. David, how's your mic?
I hope it's okay.
Yeah.
Our emphasis has been on bringing what is undesirable to the desirable, what you do not want to what you do. You will realize.
There it goes again. All right, I think it's just internet issues there. So I'm going to fill in here from the top. Our emphasis has been on bringing what is undesirable to the desirable, what you do not want to what you do. You'll realize that salvation must come to you this way if you consider what dissociation is. And we're going to do a deep dive on dissociation here. Dissociation is a distorted process of thinking whereby two systems of belief, which cannot coexist, are both maintained. This is an error. If they are brought together, their joint acceptance becomes impossible. But if one is kept in darkness from the other, their separation seems to keep them both alive and equal in their reality. Their joining thus becomes the source of fear, for if they meet, acceptance must be withdrawn from one of them. You cannot have them both, for each denies the other. Apart, this fact is lost from sight, for each is in a separate place. For each in a separate place can be endowed with firm belief. Bring them together, and the fact of their complete incompatibility is instantly apparent. No one will go because the other is seen in the same place. So this is the thesis that we're reading here today. When you bring two opposite beliefs together so that they can be seen, then their complete incompatibility is instantly apparent. So we would add a footnote to that is bring them together in the light of the Holy Spirit, illuminated by the Holy Spirit, and their complete incompatibility is then seen. So let's back up. We're talking about opposite ideas, beliefs in two different realities, one in the reality of heaven and the other in the illusions of the ego that pretends to be a reality. It's an opposite belief. And how is that maintained in the mind? Through dissociation. Another way of thinking of it is through compartmentalization. One part of the mind will continue to believe in truth, while another part of the mind believes in illusions. So dissociation is a form of separation within the mind. Dissociation favors the ego, and it is, all right, so this might have sounded like theory up until now. Dissociation is something that we're practicing all the time. It's inherent in splitting the mind and trying to maintain two opposite systems of belief. It goes on unconsciously. It is used as a defense mechanism to keep the ego's charade going. And since it's something that we didn't even realize we were doing, I thought it important enough that we spend another few minutes on it to understand dissociation. It's so simply stated, when anything occurs to you, dissociation is a way of reacting that allows the separation in your mind to continue. So here's a deeper dive on that. David, you want to take a try at this?
Dissociation is a psychological defense mechanism wherein two opposite beliefs are both maintained and seen as equal in reality. This divides the mind, as one's holy self is kept hidden from consciousness. This separation seems to enable two opposites viewpoints, each seemingly equal in reality.
So bottom line, dissociation is a way of keeping your holy self out of your awareness. And so you believe yourself to be a body, or to be separate, or to be worthless, unlovable. And whatever belief may occur, it's a way of keeping the truth of your holy self away from your consciousness. And so we have more here, and then we'll pause for comments. Oh.
Separation and dissociation are synonymous. Projection is used to keep dissociation going. Error is projected outward against grievances, while truly natural spirit impulses are repressed.
So let me pause there. Projection is used to keep dissociation going. So projection is one of the things that we come to recognize in this program, hopefully early on. And what is projection all about? Instead of recognizing that the error, the opposite idea is in my mind, it gets the opposite idea, the illusion gets projected outward into a world view, a way of looking at the world as being the source of my threat, the source of guilt, the object of my judgment. And so instead of recognizing the opposite belief is within, the ego promotes it as being viewed from without. And then the latter line here, truly natural spirit impulses that are within remain repressed and out of consciousness. This is the essence of the split state. I think the error is all due to them out there, while the truth within me is kept buried in my unconsciousness. All of this is a result of dissociation. Okay, let's go on. How do we heal, David?
Healing requires the joining of two contrary beliefs, where their complete incompatibility is instantly apparent. Acceptance by the mind must be withdrawn from one of them.
And that's what we're reading about today. And then finally,
Holy Spirit reinterprets dissociation. Now its proper use is to split yourself off from error, but only in defense of integration. This process involves reintegrating our perception of ourselves with creation, gladly associating ourselves with the sonship.
so this last point is more advanced, because you have to get through an understanding what dissociation is first before you can understand how the Holy Spirit will use dissociation to your good, for your healing. It's called the reinterpretation of dissociation by the Holy Spirit, because it's a way of responding to the world, which we've been doing all the time. So the Holy Spirit employs it for our healing. So it's a little bit more difficult to understand, but it is essential to practice. And that is, we must learn to stay back away from illusions, away from chaos. As I would say, learn to swim in your own lane, to say no to that which is false and fearful so that you can redeploy the power of your mind to that which is true and loving. So the Holy Spirit teaches you to dissociate from error and ego and judgment and grievances. So it's a skill you already have of dissociation, but now it's applied to the errors of the ego. So you're basically using a device of the ego against the ego. Only the Holy Spirit could come up with such a clever solution. Sandra?
I just love this whole thing, because I was going to ask you, how does dissociation, what does that have to do with setting healthy boundaries? And that last paragraph is it. Holy Spirit reinterprets dissociation. Now its proper use is to split yourself off from error, but only in defense of integration. So when I make a healthy boundary, it's not about you, it's about that I'm not fully integrated yet. And so I need to take some space for myself, which is a gift to myself and a gift to you, in order to set a healthy boundary. But I do it out of love, not for myself and other, not out of resentment or anger.
Thank you for recognizing, Sandra, how important this is. It really, otherwise, we keep wandering back into the same old game of the ego, which becomes increasingly, as we learn to recognize these things and become sensitive to them, becomes increasingly painful to keep doing what we've always done and getting what we've always already got. I think I messed that up. Susie?
Yeah, I really think for me, another way of saying this, or not of saying this, another thing that the Course teaches us is this just reminds me of denial, of the good use of denial of the ego. Because if I deny the ego, I'm more integrated. If I deny the ego, so to me, it's sort of in that same category, the good use of dissociation. Yeah.
You're absolutely right. The category, Susie, is to take all the toolkit of the ego. There's about, we'll say a dozen defense systems, and allow the Holy Spirit to utilize them against the ego. And so denial is one of them, dissociation is one of them, and there are many, and there's a dozen more. So you're absolutely right. All of them are around creating a healthy boundary so that we stay away from the ego and not continually going back and getting fooled by it and trapped and lost into the chaos of the ego. Julie, you had your hand up?
Hi, everybody. I'm driving. I hope my reception is okay.
Yeah.
So the thing I loved that caught me was in the paragraph before, I think, which talks about the necessity of basically, to borrow words from another system, to welcome all of your parts and realize how vital it is that you don't shut parts of yourself down, that you welcome everything, bring everything, even if it may be uncomfortable, because that's how the solution of the Course and the holy power is even able to offer you peace.
So true. Very good insight, Julie. You're connecting the dots there. Because the ego's strategy is that you keep these things in the dark, unwelcome, and unrecognized, and misunderstood, unexamined, and misunderstood, so that it might perpetuate the fears and beliefs of the past. And with the security of the Holy Spirit, we know that we can look at these things and not be afraid to recognize them for what they are, and allow that to be a path to our healing. Okay, so we have explored dissociation quite a bit. I have a way of looking at this according to the idea of trying to stay on two different tracks at the same time, two different belief systems at the same time, guilt and innocence, for instance, judgment and non-judgment, and it goes on and on and on because there are so many opposites forms that opposition can take. And it results in us trying to serve two different purposes. Clearly, that's going to lead to splitting ourselves and to unhealthy behavior. Noel?
I really like what you said about not being afraid of what they are, because often, most of the time, those beliefs are all pervading
Mhm.
the ego world,
Mhm.
and often, quote, backed up by science, by expectation, by statistics, and they can be very hard to combat. Combat, I'm sure, isn't the right word,
Mhm.
but to let go and see them for the nothing that they are.
Mhm. Mhm. It's very true. Oftentimes, looking at these things has, for the most part, been almost exclusively reserved for therapy. And I'm not saying that that's the entire truth, but people tend to not look at all unless they get into therapy or practice some kind of therapeutic modality. What A Course in Miracles offers is that we don't look at these things by ourselves, but we look at them with the light of the Holy Spirit. And only then can they be seen in a safe and healing environment. It's a sidebar and not particularly the subject of what we're reading tonight, but many philosophers throughout the centuries have attempted to look at these opposites on their own. Oh, I don't want to laugh. It's sad. They got lost in the dark. Many of them got hopelessly lost in the dark by attempting to look at the opposites by themselves, having no light to guide their explorations. They became, like author Schopenhauer, the father of pessimism.
Light cannot enter darkness when a mind believes in darkness and will not let it go. Truth does not struggle against ignorance, and love does not attack fear. What needs no protection does not defend itself. Defense is of your making. God knows it not. The Holy Spirit uses defenses on behalf of truth only because you made them against it. His perception of them, according to his purpose, merely changes them into a call for what you have attacked with them. Defenses, like everything you made, must be gently turned to your own good, translated by the Holy Spirit from means of self-destruction to means of preservation and release. His task is mighty, but the power of God is with him. Therefore, to him it is so easy that it was accomplished the instant it was given him for you. Do not delay in your return to peace by wondering how he can fulfill what God has given him to do. Leave that to him who knows. You are not asked to do mighty tasks yourself. You are merely asked to do the little he suggests you do, trusting him only to the small extent of believing that if he asks it, you can do it. You will see how easily all that he asks can be accomplished.
Mhm. Well, this is really profound. A Course in Miracles is often said to be a psycho-spiritual journey, a journey of mind and spirit. And in this paragraph, we're getting a peek at the mechanisms that are involved. Now, so what are we talking about? A moment ago, we talked about the defense mechanism of dissociation, and Susie mentioned denial, and there are at least a dozen more that we're not going to explore at this time. But as it says here, these defense systems, a way of protecting the ego's grip in that separate part of your mind, these defense mechanisms are of your own making. They're not a reality, but so to heal, the Holy Spirit uses these defenses on behalf of truth by reinterpreting them, not for keeping the ego in place, but using them against the ego so that you learn to set a healthy boundary apart from the ego. And it changes these defenses into a call for what you have attacked with them, which is the truth of your holy self. They're gently turned to your own good. They are translated by the Holy Spirit from self-destruction into self-preservation. Now, this is a tall order. The Holy Spirit's task is mighty, to take all the weapons that the ego uses to keep itself entrenched and gently translate them, repurpose them against the ego. That is a mighty order. But the power of God is with the Holy Spirit. So to the Holy Spirit, it's easy. This is not difficult. This is her purpose. So all it needs is you to be a happy learner and to willingly cooperate and realize that your safety is not in your self-made defenses, but in letting go of those defenses for the way the ego used them. In defenselessness, my safety lies. So having said all that, it's not vital that you understand all of what's going on behind the curtains with the ego retranslating in your mind. You can trust the Holy Spirit to know what to do. You're not asked to do these tasks yourself. You're merely asked to do the task that's in front of you each day and believing that you can do it. And it'll actually be easy. Each step that is needed with each day will become apparent to you when the time is necessary. And you just need to trust and by faith allow that the Holy Spirit has your best interest in heart. Sandra?
Excuse me. This is so, it's becoming just so clear and so beautiful. This book is just amazing, because one of the major defenses that I use is judgment. That the ego uses is judgment. That is the major defense that I use against the truth. And so the simplicity of this is like, as soon as I catch myself judging, which that's what I love about these meetings, because I catch myself judging in these meetings. It's just so obvious to me that I'm judging. And then to turn, that's all that's required of me. As soon as I catch myself judging, turn it over to my Holy Spirit. That's it. That's all that's required. And then, just as if this is saying, I need to have faith that Holy Spirit will give me the guidance that I need to move forward. Period. That's it. It's just that simple. Catch myself every time I'm judging and turn it over to Holy Spirit. I'm complete.
Yeah. I thought, since we said a number of times that there's this whole list of defenses, this is an older version of the slide. There's the denial, the dissociation, detachment, withdrawal, regression, rationalization, intellectualization, planning. And then I just learned recently, David, time and space are a defense mechanism for keeping, can be used by the ego as a mechanism for keeping a paradigm that reality is whatever we find in time and space. That at one place or another, or the ego can employ any set of misconstrued ideas as a way of defending its own position in our awareness. Pretty amazing. Susie, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I love the first sentence, light cannot enter darkness when a mind believes in darkness and will not let it go. And it just reminds me of where I was when I started. And it reminds me of the workbook introduction, where it says, you might not believe any of this. You might even, your ego's going to push against it all. Just keep doing it, and the light will get in. There's a little crack, like Leonard Cohen's song. And that was true for me, little by little by little, So I love that sentence, especially when I was new, because that's what it was for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the workbook lessons, helped me start to believe that darkness wasn't all that there was.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. All right, we'll go on.
The Holy Spirit asks of you but this: bring to him every secret you have locked away from him. Open every door to him and bid him enter the darkness and lighten it away. At your request, he enters gladly. He brings the light to darkness if you make the darkness open to him. But what you hide, he cannot look upon. He sees for you, and unless you look with him, he cannot see. The vision of Christ is not for him alone, but for him with you. Bring, therefore, all your dark and secret thoughts to him, and look upon them with him. He holds the light, and you the darkness. They cannot coexist when both of you together look on them. His judgment must prevail, and he will give it to you as you join your perception to his.
This is the essence of forgiveness, is a gentle willingness to allow your mind to be changed, to take an idea, belief that you've clung on to for some time, and be able to bring it out of your private world and put it in front of the Holy Spirit, who holds the light, and we'll contrast it with the truth. And Julie C., we're talking here about an individual offering up their darkness for healing, which is different than when you carry the light out into the world. So that we'll save that for another time, but this is emptying ourselves of hidden lies, and they cannot both exist when you and the Holy Spirit look on them together. And this is the essence here. Again, the philosophers of the past did not know to look at these things together with the Holy Spirit. They thought to use their intellect alone, and which were considerable, their intellect alone to investigate these matters. And they got lost in the labyrinth and the maze without any guiding light to pull them out, and became hopelessly despairing, nihilistic. So with the Holy Spirit, who understands this process, this is easy for her. This is easy. This is a purpose for which she was created, and her judgment will prevail. So we talked about judgment as being one of the defense mechanisms. This is a reinterpretation from using our own separate judgment to using the loving and divine judgment of the Holy Spirit, letting that prevail. Another way of saying that is the Holy Spirit already has a view of our errors, and we're joining her in her view of those errors rather than privately formulating our own view. And so it's a reinterpretation of the defense mechanism of judgment. If you, her judgment must prevail, and will give that judgment to you as you join your perception with the Holy Spirit. This is the essence of forgiveness. Is just this. That is forgiveness. Begins with your willingness to take the first step in this process, which is to bring your private, hidden world out into the light of the Holy Spirit and let her judgment prevail. All right, so that got a bunch of reactions. Felicia?
Yeah, I love this paragraph. I have it highlighted and asterisk by it and everything. I will never forget the first time I read it, because it really spoke to me, because it really is a willingness. You just have to be willing, and when you do that, it's when you go to the Holy Spirit with everything. It's like it takes all the complication out of it. It takes out all the worry, the unknowing, and it's just like a big release, of it's going to work out the way it's supposed to. Yeah, I just really like it. Thanks.
Thank you, Felicia. Noelle?
I like too the paragraph before. You are not asked to do mighty tasks yourself. And I think you said earlier, one thing at a time, just this one, this day, this moment. My tendency is, oh, I gotta eradicate it all at once. But no, there's a Bible, I don't know exactly where it is, but something like sufficient unto the day is the supply, or something like that.
Sufficient to the day is the trouble thereof.
Oh, maybe I didn't want that one. Sufficient unto the day is the solution thereof.
There we go. Yes. Well, it was the idea of the troubles of today are adequate. So today's troubles we don't have to solve tomorrow's troubles today. Today's troubles are adequate. Let that be our focus in the here and now. Susie?
Yeah, I feel like Felicia does. A lot of my big work, though, was in my hidden secrets, because one of those things on your list was justification, rationalization. Oh, I'll give away this, but I'll keep this, and some of them I didn't even really realize were hidden. But once I could bring them all to the Holy Spirit, the next thing for me is really important. It's when the temptation, any kind of temptation comes up, to act on one of my ego idols or beliefs or thoughts, is to really pause and ask the Holy Spirit, just connect, even say my workbook line for the day. And then it takes me out of that ego thought, and I can't have both at once. So if I say only the truth is true, it really helps me get out of that darkness. So, and I know that the Holy Spirit is there, because I know when I do this, it's like that poofer, it dissolves. I think the Course uses the word dissolve, that idea of temptation. Just, it's like, why did I even want to do that? And it's really pretty profound.
Is indeed profound. David?
Yeah, I really like this paragraph, and it says something it helps me with a concept that I had years ago of not understanding exactly where's the darkness, where's the light, who has it, who brings it, what is it, how do they work? Can you bring the darkness to the light? Can you bring the light to the darkness? And here it's very clear, very clear. He brings the light to darkness if you make the darkness open to him. So we have the darkness. He has the light. So we bring the darkness to him. He brings the light to us. The darkness is the illusion. The light is the truth. And to understand that was difficult for me in the beginning, because I would say, well, yeah, I can bring the darkness to the light. I can't bring the darkness to the light. I can expose the darkness, and he will bring the light to it and dispel it. There's a real difference in that. I don't know if it's too subtle if I didn't explain it well.
It is subtle, and I found this whole mechanism to be subtle. A big part is if you make the darkness open to him.
Right.
Because we can certainly, like I mentioned, the philosophers, they entered into the darkness, not with the intent of making it open to the Holy Spirit, but with the intent to using their considerable mental training to try to find the truth of what goes on in those subconscious, subterranean parts of the mind. So that was pretty, and so there go I. How many of us have wandered into our own troubled memories of our life and by ourselves tried to find the answer there to our troubles? It's promoted by the ego that you should go figure it out yourself. Just let's review the past again. And as we've learned, the ego's motivation is that you'll find someone guilty if you just keep looking long enough. And here, very different than going in there by yourself. Here, going there with the purpose of permitting the Holy Spirit to examine these things along with you. Bonnie?
Building on what you just said, it was such a comfort to me, such a revelation to know that I could bring these defenses, my defenses, to a being or an essence who can transmute them, who can use them for my good. I mean, that whole idea, until I got into this, I didn't really understand that idea. But what a weight is lifted knowing that there is such a being, and it's such a comfort in knowing this, such a revelation.
Thank you for recognizing that, Bonnie. It is it lightens our load. It puts a mighty task into the hands of the Holy Spirit. But as we said earlier, having the power of God endorsing the Holy Spirit, this is easy for the Holy Spirit. So it takes a heavy burden off of ourselves and puts it in the hands of one that is not troubled by it at all.
Yeah.
Noel?
Maybe part of the making the darkness open to him is, first of all, admitting it rather than trying to admitting every part of it, rather than trying to hide some, rationalize some, or use some as, well, I'm right. So it's like a clean sweep.
Yeah, there are many because this is the realm that people go to therapy for. What am I going to do with these ideas that trouble me? And there are 600 different solutions that have been proposed. But how many of them include bring the Holy Spirit with you, open the doors of your mind to the Holy Spirit? A far smaller number of them will do that. And so, yes, there are many ways that have been proposed that we deal with our troubled thoughts, troubled feelings, troubled memories. This one is different in that it encourages you not to go in with simply another human being or human powers, but bringing the power of the divine mind into that process. Bonnie, do you have another comment? I can't tell if that was from before or not. No.
That's from before.
Yeah, okay, that happens. All right, thank you. So we like this paragraph. Let's please look at it again later on when you have a chance. Let it sink in to the next level.
Joining with him in seeing is the way in which you learn to share with him the interpretation of perception that leads to knowledge. You cannot see alone. Sharing perception with him whom God has given you teaches you how to recognize what you see. It is the recognition that nothing you see means anything alone. Seeing with him will show you that all meaning, including yours, comes not from double vision, but from the gentle fusing of everything into one meaning, one emotion, and one purpose. God has one purpose which he shares with you. The single vision which the Holy Spirit offers you will bring this oneness to your mind with clarity and brightness so intense you could not wish for all the world not to accept what God would have you have. Behold your will, accepting it as his, with all his love as yours. All honor to you through him, and through him unto God.
There's a lot here. This is the last paragraph in this section, but it also really culminates in the entire topic of sharing perception with the Holy Spirit. So we're still talking about a continuation of this paragraph, that previous paragraph, where we open the doors of our mind to the light of the Holy Spirit and look at these things with the Holy Spirit. So when we say joining with him in seeing is the way in which you learn to share with him. So this is part of a broader process of not just going to the Holy Spirit with your troubled thoughts, but to go to the Holy Spirit looking for guidance in all things. It's a part of a broader program. Going to the Holy Spirit with your troubled thoughts is definitely a place to begin. But it continues on because the Holy Spirit's goal is just begins with helping you overcome your troubled thoughts. Her goal is to carry you all the way home to knowledge. And so then the second part of what we read here is all about preparing for knowledge, of which so much can be said. David, you had your hand up.
I did, because this text contains lesson number 1 in the workbook. Nothing you see means anything. And I so distinctly remember starting the workbook and reading lesson number 1 and saying, this is insanity. What do you mean nothing I see means anything? Nothing in this room means anything. And the key word here is alone. By myself, alone, nothing I see means anything. But imbued with the Spirit and the knowledge and the light of the Holy Spirit, then I can start to see the true meaning of things.
Yeah, no, that's really good, David. The emphasis on alone. I put that through the test to try to evaluate that. And so, like, if you take one grain of sand, just one little grain of sand, and look at it alone, it has no context. It has no meaning. If you take one drop from the ocean alone, it cannot be seen for its purpose. Things isolate. The technique of the ego is to isolate things apart from the bigger picture and then attempt to imagine a belief about them in isolation. And as David pointed out, alone, nothing you see means anything. It's only in its relationship to the bigger picture, to its context of the things that surround it, that it has meaning. And why is this important? You say, this is just philosophizing. Things only have meaning in relationship to their broader context. Well, it's preparing us for the long-term goal that comes at the end of atonement, which is a gentle fusing of everything, literally everything, into one meaning, one emotion, and one purpose, the purpose the Creator has in mind, which is given to us to share in. This has many ways of being described, such as a single vision, a single purpose of bringing oneness to your mind. And the difference is, well, all of us have had a glimpse of oneness in some form or another, but this brings oneness to your mind with clarity, and brightness and with intensity, that so that it's not just a glimpse, it's a firm recognition that this is a fact, that truth is. So what we're talking about here is the vision of where the Holy Spirit would have us go. And to do that, we have to be willing to recognize things exactly as they are, to let all things be exactly as they are. Sandra?
I call that holistic thinking, because without the Holy Spirit, everything is fragmented to me.
Yeah. Holistic thinking. Yeah. So that word holistic is used a lot in our world today, perhaps in different ways. Words that are found in the Course that relate to it are totality, knowledge, wholeness. They speak often to it as everything and everyone.
Holiness.
Holiness, for sure. It's a eternal unity with all things. Term that I've really prefer is divine union. It's the union as part of the divine of all of creation. Joint will, the sonship, is union with all creation. So, sharing perception with the Holy Spirit has different phases that one goes through. It begins with emptying the darkness from the hidden chambers of our mind, but it doesn't stop there. It then continues on to more of what we'll call, after the darkness is empty, an illuminated phase, a light phase. This would be grace and happiness, happy learners, free of guilt. And then it has its ultimate destination, which is divine union, total oneness, knowledge. As it says, it's an interpretation of perception that leads to eternal knowledge. And it cannot be achieved by oneself. It can only be achieved by joining with the whole mind, with the one mind. So I like to say that when we finally get there, it's crowded, it's busy. Everybody's welcome in that space. And so this is just a reminder that the next session, we're not going to read 14.8. We're signing those 5 paragraphs for you to read on your own. The next section on Sunday will go on to 14.9. But that is all the reading that we're going to do today. And I just think that each step that we take along the way matters so much. And it feels like this was a really important step today. Susie?
Yeah, I just have to comment on what you said because it's just so true for me. You said there's hundreds of ways that we've been told or something. I can't say what you said exactly, and for me, I tried so many different ways to heal myself, therapy, and, my therapist would say different things and, oh God, and whoever knew it was so simple to just join with the Holy Spirit and let the Holy Spirit heal my mind and help heal me. And I didn't have to do it alone. And I thought I had to do it alone, but that actually the only thing in all these decades of me being on this earth, the only way that I started to heal was with the Holy Spirit. and through the course. And it's a fascinating thing. I don't know how it works, but it works, and the Holy Spirit is there, and she has healed so many parts of my mind that I tried so hard to heal. Not necessarily on my own, Jonica. You know, I thought with help of other humans, but it never really worked. And it's just tears in my eyes of gratitude and appreciation for the course and you and the Holy Spirit. And, you know, it's just amazing. And it's pretty much free.
You know, my observation is if it's simple and free, people, that'd be the last place people will look. Sign me up for a $2,500 elaboration workshop, or, you know, for 10 years of psychotherapy or something else. But simple and free, oh my goodness. How could anything so troubling be removed by simple and free?
It's so true. I don't know
Funny
how
when you
many
think
times
about it.
I read Melody Beattie's book over and over and over and over again. Go to, you know, I mean, it's just, I don't know, to have the Holy Spirit as my person is pretty great.
Great. Thank you. Julie, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment real quickly before we go. I love, this was such a good section for me, and I love the way that the ending tied it right back to the beginning, which it often does, but in this particular class it was really strong because, you know, we're left with saying, you know, seeing with him will show you that all meaning, including yours, comes from double vision, but the gentle fusing of everything into one meaning, one emotion, and one purpose is what brings the healing. And in the very first paragraph, it was talking about how truth is union. And so it kind of just brought everything back together for me about the one meaning and one emotion and one purpose. That is the truth. And it just brought it home really strongly, where we started off talking about truth is union, and then kind of went down the pathway of, you know, how that works, you know, practically. And then it just brought it back again to truth is union. Oneness.
Yeah, that full sentence that Julie's referring to in union, everything that is not real must disappear, for truth is union. Yeah, yeah. Nice catch on that, Julie. Noel?
For me, I appreciate the last two sentences so much, even from the standpoint of the poetry of them. And the very last sentence speaks of his humility to us. All honor to you through him. Very moving.
It is beautifully written. Yeah. Thank you. Sandra?
And I would just like to say, Holy Spirit has brought me union with myself, because I always thought that it was going to be you who were going to do that. One of you somehow would bring me back to my true self. And Holy Spirit gave me my true self. And part of my experience with that is I have walked this path solo for many, many, many years. And I thought I was going to die from loneliness, just die from it. And I no longer feel lonely. Holy Spirit is the mightiest companion that I can have. And there's a joy now in no distractions. I can go immediately to Holy Spirit. I don't have people or anything to distract me. I got this wonderful relationship with my Holy Spirit, and it's saved my life. I'm complete.
Beautiful. I just feel to share this thing. I used to volunteer with a food bank of Palm Beach County, and they did 5 million pounds of food a year. They redistributed here to various organizations. And there was this one guy. It was a warehouse kept cold to keep the food from spoiling. And there was this one gentleman on there who used to be the forklift driver, and he was very spiritual. He was like had the joy of spirit with him, and we get to talking, and he'd just say, these were his words. He'd say, "It's a relationship." He would just be so bubbling over with being in relationship with spirit. So he'd be driving his forklift around, picking up the pallets and everything, feeling like he wasn't alone. He wasn't by himself, but he was in a relationship. And just the way he said it and the conviction and the meaning that it had for him, I always remember that. So yes, it's not lonely. It's actually crowded in there. Everybody wants to be a part of the divine union. Well, that's all that we have for today. Thank you so much, David. Thank you for reading. Thank you all for sharing. We'll look forward to picking this up on the next step, and we'll see you again soon. Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste, everybody.
Thank you,
Namaste.
David.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks,
Thank
David.
you,
Thanks,
everyone.
You
John.
got it. My
Bye.
pleasure.
Have a nice weekend, all.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, to you.